Greetings. Some of us don't have much content in our prayers because we can't picture how the Almighty God is interested in our puny affairs. We may also feel unworthy because of the limited, not very deep range of our interests. Why should God care about what I do in my garage or at the sports club? Stop doing that to yourself. God doesn't want to belittle you and doesn't want you to belittle yourself. And what you may think is small potatoes just may be of real importance to him. Give him a chance. See how curious he may be when you open yourself up to him in your prayers. This is the Practicing Christian, and this week's report is on the business of praying for the unlikely. As I began to write this report, I was thinking of using impossible in the title, praying for the impossible. But the verse, Jesus looked at them and said, "For mortals it is impossible, but not for God. For God all things are possible." In Mark 10:27. That came to mind. I knew that I couldn't use that word, impossible, as I'd planned. The next word that occurred to me was unlikely. Even though that word appears nowhere in the Bible, still the concept of unlikely does show up, as in Judges 6:14-16. It also manifests itself in the half-completed prayers we may offer, as well as in the prayers that we think of and don't even begin to utter. When we tell ourselves, God doesn't want that for me, as if it were impossible for God to help us to get what we've dreamed of and desired, we're taking over from God. We're deciding for him. Wrong move. Let God decide if what's on your mind or in your heart is what he wants you to have. That's not your job. We're reluctant to mention certain subjects, or we feel unworthy, or it seems irreligious to us for some things to happen. Many practicing Christians have exactly this problem. Part of that lies in the kind of reality that most of us learned to pray about as children. So we may retain a tendency to pray mostly for childish things. For example, many men who want to grow closer to their wives have a hard time asking God to equip their hearts and bodies to be better lovers to their wives. But they may not say one word to the Lord about this. It may not always seem so to us, but God has a clear desire for each of his human creations to come to him with trust, love, and obedience, and thus become one of his adopted children. Quote, "To all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood, or the will of the flesh, or of the will of man, but of God." That's in John 1, verses 12-13. Thus, quote, "Don't you know that all of you saints will judge the world? And if the world is to be judged by you, are you incompetent to try trivial cases? Don't you know that we are to judge angels, to say nothing of ordinary matters?" Close quote. That's Paul in 1 Corinthians 6, verses 2 and 3. All of life comes within the grace and judgment of God. No matter how unlikely an event or a person may seem to be of interest to God, he wishes to see us deal with it as his children and to consult with him, that is to pray, to know how best to do this. His guidance and his help is never ending. Therefore, never convince yourself that what you may want or are doing is impossible or even unlikely to be pleasing to God. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Now, I just can't resist going back to my first word choice for the title of this report, Pray for the Impossible. Christian history is full of what look like impossible things being done by fairly ordinary Christians. Three of these come to my mind. One of them was William Wilberforce, the key figure supporting the anti-slavery cause within Parliament. In 1806 or 7, with the abolition campaign losing momentum, he brought a breakthrough. Legislation was finally passed in both the Commons and the Lords, which brought an end to Britain's involvement in the trade. That seemed like impossible. At about the same time, John Newton, the 47-year-old clergyman, began writing a song, Amazing Grace, about a grace that is immense, that saved him out of his own wretchedness. A song that is sung by millions of people every day in almost every country in the world. An impossible achievement musically. Dorothy Day was a journalist born in Brooklyn in 1897. A social activist and anarchist who, after a bohemian youth, became a Catholic, without abandoning her social and anarchist activism. She began the Catholic worker movement and was perhaps the best-known political Christian among American Catholics in the 20th century. Sort of impossible, isn't it? Each of these people had seemed to be someone who was unlikely, at the very least, to accomplish very much. Prayer for the unlikely is rarely seen. And in the video below, which you can look for in the text, we can see but not hear. I just wish that this young man in this video could be sent around our nation from church to church to give a brief explanation of what he did and what he knows about God. Well, when we finally come full circle in the prayers that we send to our God, we must remember that he created us to be truly excellent. Our fallen estate can lead us to forget this. And when his kingdom comes in all its fullness, our resurrected selves will again experience that state of excellence which our human race was originally blessed with. That means that no kind and loving thing that we can imagine should be beyond our prayer to God to help us to reach towards it. That is, to the impossible. For in the coming days we shall each experience the richness of life that now eludes us. So, go ahead. Pray for what may seem unlikely, and reach for what may, today, seem impossible. Serve then, be the king's right arm.